This is a true story that happened during an outdoor activity organized by a school. A student was assigned to a cave exploration expedition, but unexpectedly, they encountered a sudden flood, resulting in the tragic drowning of a student inside the cave. The incident occurred in 2005 at Tadcaster Grammar School in England. All 8th grade students, around 100 in total, were divided into 9 groups to participate in various activities, such as river exploration, fishing, and rock climbing. Among these groups, one was assigned to explore caves and included one student, a teacher, and a 17-year-old volunteer guide. The cave they were going to explore was known as Manchester Cave. Its entrance was just a small hole, but its interior was vast and impressive. Carefully, they navigated through some narrow tunnels filled with a damp, musty atmosphere. Soon, they arrived at a large chamber with a 15-meter-high ceiling, adorned with hanging stalactites. The chamber was majestic, resembling the size of several basketball courts. The students, amazed by the enormous underground space, quickly forgot their initial nervousness and were filled with a desire to explore this unknown world. They then proceeded to a narrow corridor leading to a second chamber. The path was winding, with occasional drops of water falling from the walls. When they reached the second chamber, they noticed it was much smaller, only a few dozen square meters in size, with a thin layer of water on the floor. After a quick look around, they decided to move on to the third chamber, which promised to be more interesting. However, the corridor leading to it was more challenging, with irregular paths resembling a labyrinth. The guide led the group while the teacher stayed at the back. To ensure everyone's safety, the path was full of twists and changes in elevation, limiting visibility. This made some students feel uneasy, especially as the slippery, muddy floor made the journey even harder. Still, many found the challenge exciting. Finally, they arrived at the third chamber, which was narrow and had water up to their knees. At first, the guide didn't think much of the shallow water, but as he moved further, he began to feel uneasy. He noticed that the water level seemed to be rising quickly. Unsure if it was truly rising or if the terrain was simply lower ahead, he returned to the entrance of the chamber to check. When he carefully observed the water surface, he was horrified. The water level was indeed rising at an alarming rate. Although the weather forecast had not indicated any rain, the guide had no time to figure out what was happening. He immediately ordered everyone to retreat the way they had come. The students began crawling through the tunnel, and in some wider sections, they advanced in pairs to speed up. The water rose rapidly, and cries of fear and panic echoed through the space. In sections where the tunnel was already submerged, the students had no choice but to dive underwater to pass through. When Amy and Joseph hesitated to dive, the guide shouted in desperation, "If you don't swim now, we're all going to die here." Terrified, they plunged into the freezing water, followed by the teacher, whose eyes showed determination and responsibility. After much effort, the group made it back to the second chamber. The teacher quickly counted the students and realized one person was missing: Joseph, the same student who had hesitated to dive. The guide, desperate, guessed that Joseph might have taken a wrong turn in one of the many junctions in the tunnel. He was about to swim back to search for him when the teacher stopped him, pointing out that the path back to the first chamber was also nearly completely submerged. To ensure the safety of the majority, they decided to lead the remaining 10 students to the surface. They couldn't afford to waste a second, fearing another section of the tunnel might flood. Finally, they reached the first chamber, which, due to its size, was not yet fully flooded. When they emerged, they looked back and saw that the tunnel they had just exited was now completely underwater. The thought of being trapped inside sent chills down their spines. Once on the surface, they quickly called for rescue services. Curiously, the weather outside was sunny, with no signs of rain. So what could have caused the sudden flood? Rescue teams arrived at the scene and assessed the situation, but stated that, due to the high water level and the complex terrain, it would be impossible to enter the cave until the water receded. Unfortunately, when the water finally subsided and Joseph was found, he was already lifeless. An investigation later revealed that the flooding was caused by the release of water from a nearby dam. The excess water had seeped into the cave system, leading to the tragedy.